We would see foreign education as an asset, especially since that's been subsidized by other taxpayers in many ways. So from my perspective, and when I speak to many groups, I emphasize business and government should be encouraged to train their managers, their own managers, how to better attract, retain, and hire immigrants, as well as how to unlock their unique talents and international abilities to leverage their knowledge, not only for an asset for Toronto, but for an asset for this nation. So in other words, and this is the punchline where we bring it all together, a prosperous future for Toronto and Canada involves not only teaching newcomers how to be more Canadian, but teaching Canadians how to be more international. It's a two-way street. Now, it's widely known that immigration is key to replenishing our labor market and that success in foreign markets is key to our economic growth. But as I've said, the solution is right before our eyes, but only if we choose to see the glass not half empty, but half full. So our businesses, our government leaders have to make this a key priority, and all of us have to stick together and make that a strategic priority for them and continue to send a clear signal that way. Now, much of what I've told you, aside from some of the statistics, you know and you live every day. So I'm not here to say, wait for the world to change, because I know that you actually have to get up, and you simply can't wait for the world to change. You have to advance this process. But how? Now, I would suggest that that's part of the reason you came to this conference, to learn about what some of those steps could be. And if I understand correctly, how to get connected, and that's a very important theme. So what I'd like to do is spend a minute or two and tell you about some of the tips that I've learned along the way about how to get connected, how to build a network, because it's very important to your own personal and professional success. At its heart, building a network is about developing trusting relationships and finding ways to collaborate with other people. And there's some very particular, and I might say peculiar ways of doing it, not only in Canada, but particularly in Toronto. So the first one, I'm going to have 5 for you. First one, have a clear purpose in your mind. Be clear on what you want and be prepared to listen more than you talk. And here's a little anecdote about that. Some time ago, I was leaving a meeting, and I happened to be walking out with a gentleman who was a First Nations chief. And he looked at me and he said, "You know, we're both Indian." And I said, "Yeah, I guess in a certain way we are both Indian." And he said, "We probably had a similar core and upbringing." And I said, "I'm really interested to know where this conversation's going." And he said, "I bet you were taught a version of what I was taught." And I said, "What's that?" He said, "God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason." And I thought, isn't that right? So what was he saying? Listen twice as much as you speak. And I thought there's a real kernel of wisdom there. So as a part of building your own network, I think you go back into that and remind yourself, listen carefully to what your potential partners have to say. And if you think there's a fit, a mutual benefit, then continue on. But listen more than you speak. Second piece I'd like to remind you about, or to introduce you to, is an art. But it's not any painting style art. It's called the art of triangulation, right? Triangles. What's the point I'm trying to make? If you want to meet somebody, I would not suggest you cold calling them. I would also not suggest you corner them at a reception. What I would suggest you do is find out somebody who knows that individual and ask that person on their guidance and advice and how they can help connect you with them. Someone introducing you to someone else is a very, very powerful statement to make and is a very important part of building a network. But it's not just something you go through the motions on. It is literally an art. It's something you practice and you develop. So I call it the art of triangulation. The third part that I'd like to tell you about is, it's going to sound very simple, but I want to build through this, is treat everyone you meet as a potential partner. So the person you meet today may not be a potential partner today, but tomorrow they very well could be. So your reputation is frankly the greatest asset that you bring to all of this. So develop it as such an important asset and treat it and protect it as such an asset. Now, it's going to sound to state the obvious this way, but be nice when you do all of this. It's surprising how many people lose that notion. You never know when you're going to want to go back and meet somebody, and you're only as good as the last person you met. And as it relates to triangulation, it's probably even more important. So think very carefully about that. And when building a network, I like to remind myself of this. It is truly better to give than it is to receive. I'm a strong believer in the notion of karma. If you do good and give a lot now, trust me, it does come back in spades, and as they say. And when you're working in networks and developing them, don't go into them looking, what am I going to get out of it today? You contribute to it. Trust me, it will come back. You need to remind yourself of that. One other item, the fourth on the list, is keep your word and manage your expectations. Many people that come to work with me or want to do things that frankly they cannot deliver on. But they want to because they want to be helpful. So a note of caution to yourself. If you say you're going to do something, do it. If you don't think you can do it, say so up front, because that's okay. People will respect you for saying that you can't do something if you have a good reason to do it. And they won't remember you for always saying no. What they will remember, though, is somebody who says they're going to do something and then they don't do it. And that's the last thing that you want to be remembered for. So just keep that in mind. In your desire to be helpful, your desire to do things, don't go so far that you let people down. If you can't do it, let them know. Everybody goes home a whole lot happier. The last one, and this is something that my children remind me of all the time, I call it the sandbox rule. Remember the little sandboxes that all the little kids play with their shovels and their buckets? The sandbox rule is very simple. Everything you learned in life, you probably learned by age of 5 playing in a sandbox. And that's how to get along with people, how to share, and above all, how to say thank you. And there are a lot of people who forget that little piece. So in the type of networks and the type of world we live in here, saying thank you, how and when you do that and how often is extremely important. So put a big smile on your face and just remind yourself, when you get involved in developing these, don't forget to say thank you. So in the end, I hope when you build all of these things together, you recognize that building networks is about building personal partnerships. And quite frankly, it is the road to success. And when I say that, I'm also reminded of another saying, and it popped up in a conversation the other day. I thought I'd share it with you today. It goes a little like this. Now, I'm a sailor, by the way, so this is an old sailing term. It says, the hardest ship to sail is a partnership. Right? The hardest ship to sail is a partnership. So it's very simple, but it's certainly not easy. But the type of journey you're on, investing in building partnerships, it takes a lot of effort. But because it's the key to your personal and professional success, it's something that's worth your effort and thinking about and really putting some effort behind and learning how to do that. It'll pay off. Now, as I said a little bit earlier, you're going to be leaving the conference after a long time spent thinking about issues that are very important to yourself. Over the weekend, over the next week, you're going to think about the people that you've met, the speakers that you heard, some of the takeaways, and you're going to try to assimilate a lot of it. Some of it will be, boy, how do I do that? Or some of it will be, I'm already doing that. But you're going to look for a compass that says, how do I get through this next year, take this learning, and make something of it? So I want to leave you with another idea to take it with you for the weekend. And it relates to something that's going to happen on the weekend that some of you may watch, and that's football. So this weekend, we're into the U.S. football playoffs, and it's a big deal, particularly south of the border. There's a little story that's emerging of this team called Seattle Seahawks, and they have no business being in the playoffs because they have a really bad record. But they're in there, and they're winning, and they're looking good. And they've got a coach who's a really dynamic guy, but his career has been up and down so many times. And they asked him about that, and they said to him, how do you feel about how your career has gone so many ups and downs? And he said something really smart that I thought we could all learn from. And he said, I live my life thinking something good is just about to happen. I don't think things are going to go bad. My focus goes to how things could look and turn good. Translated, you must imagine your success for it to be yours. So that's the thought that I'd like you to take away for this weekend. Imagine your success, and it will be yours. So thank you for joining me on this late Friday afternoon. I hope you had a good day, and it's been a pleasure being with you here today.
Thank you so much, Rahul. And on behalf of PCPI, I would like to present you with a small token.
Thank you very much. Very kind.